It's decision time for your Dallas Cowboys. From the Dak contract to free agency to the NFL draft. The time is now, and we're talking about it on the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. Here it is. It's the month of March. It's known for March Madness, but we're not talking college basketball. We're talking the madness that is a new National Football League year that commences in just over a week from now. And this is the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. Bill Jones, along with Kyle Youmans. And Kyle, we've been doing this show called The Blitz going all the way back over a decade and a half now. And it kicks off the offseason for the Dallas Cowboys every year. We've gotten through that lull after the Super Bowl, and now we can focus on football once again. It's a great time of the year, Kyle.
It's the best time of the year, Bill, other than, football season. But even with all of the decade of doing this show, I'm sure there probably hasn't been an offseason quite as unpredictable and volatile toward the Dallas Cowboys as the one that we're about to experience.
That's right. And the contract situation for Dak Prescott is coming to a head. We talk about that. But let's get you caught up on what's been going on with this Cowboys team. And let's talk about the defense. The defense needed to be shored up from last year. When you look at the numbers from last year, this Dallas defense gave up the most points in franchise history, 473. That's nearly 30 points a game. Most yards allowed, second most in team history. Rushing yards, they were 31st in the league. So they needed to do something to shore up this defense, and that's was the first order of business back in January. Some changes on the coaching staff. As expected, defensive coordinator Mike Nolan no longer here. Jim Tomsula, the defensive line coach, as well as the secondary coach Maurice Lindquist. And the changes made, Kyle, as coming to the Cowboys, defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, defensive line coach Aiden Dirty, and the secondary and pass game coordinator as well, Joe Witt Jr. Let's talk about Dan Quinn and how he's going to shore up this Dallas defense.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, how historically bad the defense was in 2020, and you could have blamed Mike Nolan as the defensive coordinator. You could have blamed the lack of an offseason last season, but then you come in and you bring in an established coach who has had success pretty much everywhere that he's been. He started off in Seattle really as a defensive line coach, moved to the University of Florida where he was a defensive coordinator there, picked up back to Seattle as a D coordinator where he led the Legion of Boom and created a historically good defense that won championships with Seattle in the Great Northwest before moving on and becoming the head coach in Atlanta, where he did lead the Falcons to a Super Bowl. So much unlike Mike Nolan a year ago, who was unproven, who was untested, and then hired as the defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn comes in with a ton of accolades, and he has an opportunity to maybe fix this defense with some of the personnel that they are bringing back in 2021.
And when you look at the needs that the Cowboys have on defense, it'd be nice if we could turn back the clock to about 2013 and 14 when he was leading the number one defense in the league, the Legion of Boom. If there was an Earl Thomas in this draft, if there was a Richard Sherman, if there was a Cam Chancellor, that's what the Cowboys need on this secondary. That would turn things around more than anything on the coaching side of things, and that's where we're going later here on the Blitz. Some prospects in this draft that the Cowboys have to be looking at, and also as far as free agency is concerned. And when we come back in a moment, we turn our attention to the order of business that the Cowboys are tending to right now. Dak Prescott's contract. Rob Phillips joins the show to break it down next.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz is brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. Tour AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Tours are available daily. For details, visit attstadium.com/tours. This segment is brought to you by AT&T. the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report continues now. What a big week it is. What a big month it is for the Cowboys. Bill Jones with Kyle Youmans and all across the National Football League as well as franchise tag deadline day. The precise hour is 3 o'clock Central Time on Tuesday. And you know what that means? It's Dak decision time. And you know what that means as far as the Blitz is concerned? We are joined by Rob Phillips to break it all down. It's like last year all over again as far as a franchise tag and a quarterback. But Rob, tell me this year might be different. What do you think?
It might be 2019 too all over again. I'm pretty sure I did this show in 2019 when talks started, and they, to this point, still have not gotten done. To your point, it is the $37.7 million question. Are the Cowboys going to get this done by Tuesday, or play, or at least have that placeholder in place with the franchise tag so they can continue negotiations? What we know heading into the weekend was there have been discussions, have been conversations, termed as positive according to all reports, but that doesn't make fans feel any better until it finally gets done, Bill and Kyle.
What do you think this timeline is really going to look like whenever it comes to Dak Prescott? Because there's really three different options. There's that long-term deal, there's the tag that could be placed just to keep negotiations going, and then of course there's just him becoming an unrestricted free agent. But when do you think one of those three is going to end up coming across later in the week?
Well, I certainly don't think the unrestricted free agent part will happen. The Cowboys want to get this done, and they have every intention of having to tag him if that's the necessary option. But Stephen Jones, Cowboys COO, always says deadlines make deals. And I believe that this year, Kyle, the deadlines mean more than ever, because even if it's not March 9th, you've got March 17th coming up, the start of free agency. And boy, the Cowboys would like to have some wiggle room to try to be active in free agency. If you get a long-term deal done, yes, it's a massive contract. We all know that. But it allows them to spread the money out and have a little left over to be a little active in free agency. We all know the needs that they have. If he's got to be tagged, and if for some reason by July 15th it doesn't happen, then you're looking at opening that door to unrestricted free agency next year, Kyle, because we're looking at nearly a $55 million franchise tag if that would have to be the route in 2022.
Rob, let's talk about the quarterback situation in general for this team. Depends on what the Cowboys obviously are going to do with Dak, but how do they approach it as far as the backups now?
The backup spot? Well, they've got Garrett Gilbert under contract. Now, we saw him for one game last year, and he looked good. So that's an affordable option if Andy Dalton is not back via free agency. It's his first chance to enter March as a free agent and see what's out there, see if the starting opportunity is out there. If he leaves, I think that opens the door for Gilbert. You've got the draft in April, but again, even if a deal's not done by April, as many needs as the Cowboys have on their team, I still think quarterback is not got to be at the top of the list. You've got to try to build your team around Dak Prescott, and as long as conversations remain positive, see if you can build around him and fix the defense primarily.
Really quickly here, Rob, do you think a deal gets done with Dak Prescott heading into the deadline on Tuesday?
I think there's a chance. If not, I do think a deal will get done eventually because the Cowboys are motivated to make it happen. I would assume Dak wants to make it happen. He has always said that. But again, it's year 3, off season 3. Believe it when you see it, I guess.
Yes. So you're telling me there's a chance, and of course the whole salary cap number plays a big factor into it as well. Rob Phillips, we appreciate it. We kick off a new season here on the Blitz, and when we come back in just a moment, let's check out where the Cowboys are in the secondary. Yes, there are a lot of free agents to be in the defensive backfield.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. There are several free agents to be in this Cowboys secondary this year, and Danny Sarek takes a closer look.
The Cowboys have 23 projected free agents, most of which are on defense. Dallas could lose up to 3 starters in the secondary due to free agency, and cornerbacks Jordan Lewis and Chidobe Awuzie and safety Xavier Woods. All 3 have played through their 4-year rookie deal after being drafted by the Cowboys in 2017.
And then it's picked off. Intercepted here by Awuzie.
Cornerback Chidobe Awuzie logged the Cowboys' first of 10 interceptions last season. In the 8 games Awuzie played, missing half the season due to a hamstring injury in the COVID reserve list, he played 39% of the defensive snaps. In his 4 years in the league, Awuzie has racked up 37 pass deflections along with 4 interceptions.
Blitz sack by Jordan Lewis. What a well-timed blitz by Jordan Lewis.
Jordan Lewis might not have the typical cornerback physical traits, but he has made an impact blitzing off the edge and defending the slot. Lewis missed the first game of the 2020 season with an ankle injury, but played 70% of the defensive snaps in the 15 games he played. Lewis allowed an average of 8.7 yards per catch, the best among these 3 free agents. Starting free safety Xavier Woods is the most experienced safety on this roster. In the 15 games Woods played this season, he was on the field for 84% of the defensive snaps, however allowed a completion 79% of the time. The worst year for Woods in his career in terms of interceptions, pass deflections, and forced fumbles. The Cowboys still have cornerbacks Anthony Brown and Trayvon Diggs under contract. That means the Cowboys might not want to pay both Lewis and Awuzie new deals if they like the depth they see, as well as the players they see in free agency or draft prospects. It'll be interesting to see how new defensive coordinator Dan Quinn handles these decisions this offseason. Will Quinn look at film from last year where the Cowboys were a historically bad defense under Mike Nolan, or will he go back to when the Cowboys played under defensive coordinator Rod Marinelli and passing game coordinator Chris Richard, where the Cowboys excelled in a 4-3 defense, which is the same scheme we can expect to see from Quinn? Kyle?
All right, thanks, Danny. And here they are, your free agents in the Cowboys secondary. You start at the safety position. Xavier Woods, 48 starts in his career. And, of course, you got Jordan Lewis and Chidobe Awuzie with the number of starts, and a special teamer as well, and C.J. Goodwin, who was a key special teams player. And Kyle Youmans, where do you think the Cowboys set as far as their secondary goes going into this offseason?
Well, Bill, like you said, the experience is there, but the scary thing is none of those 4 guys really played convincingly enough to bring them back, and especially with a new defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn, who will run that 4-3 base defense and then turn around and play the cover 3 in the secondary. He needs a high free safety who can play the football, and that's not necessarily what Xavier Woods brings to the table. So I think it's more likely that one of these 2 corners or both of the corners come back. Chidobe Awuzie showed that he can be a starting caliber corner in the NFL, and Jordan Lewis is, of course, a very good option to play the slot. And against some top caliber or NFC East slot receivers, you're going to need a guy like him to play week in and week out, and that's what he did.
You know, as they say, you can never have enough cornerbacks in this league. And when we come back here on the Blitz, of course, last year, Trayvon Diggs was a second-round draft pick out of Alabama. Could the Cowboys go back to Alabama for a cornerback this year? Or maybe Virginia Tech or South Carolina? Dave Hellman joins the show when we come back. The Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report continues. Now Bill Jones along with Kyle Youmans. And yes, now we get to dig in to a position of need for the Cowboys. Kyle, I would say cornerback would be a position of need for the Cowboys as we approach this new league year. Yes, with we've already talked about the vacancies at the cornerback position because there are free agents to be. How about we bring in Dave Hellman of DallasCowboys.com. Talk about some of the top prospects in this draft. And Dave, welcome to the Blitz. Great to see you. And how about we start with an Alabama cornerback? Of course, there's already an Alabama cornerback on this team, a pretty good one in Trayvon Diggs. How about Patrick Surtain Jr.?
Yeah, good to be back, guys. Bill, I don't want to date you. I would never do that, but I am starting to feel old because guys that I remember playing in the NFL are having kids that are coming into the NFL. Obviously, Patrick Surtain Jr., the son of Patrick Surtain, the former great NFL cornerback. And if I had to handicap it right now, I'm going to go ahead and say I think this is the favorite to be your pick at number 10. Obviously has the bloodline to be an NFL cornerback. He's got the size. He's got the experience. Lockdown cornerback at Alabama over these last 2 seasons, helped them win a national title. There's not much to dislike about this guy. Like I said, if I had to pick it right now, I think this is your front runner to be the next Dallas Cowboy.
And Dave, while he may be the favorite, a lot of people around the league might say that he's the safe pick whenever it comes to out of really any of the players that could be taken at 10. What do you say to that? And what kind of player would you get if you did select Patrick Surtain?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like people look for ways to pick this guy's game apart. He's had his share of hiccups. You're going to get beaten playing cornerback. You go against the absolute best in college football when you play at Alabama. But for me, and we're going to compare him to this next guy, Caleb Farley at Virginia Tech. Patrick Surtain has 15 more games of tape than Caleb Farley. Like I said, has done it against the very best, whether that's Florida, whether that's LSU. And so I do think he's a safe pick, but I just think it's funny that extended resume, I think people look for reasons to pick it apart because he has played so much football over these last 2 years.
And I just remember last year when I was watching Trayvon Diggs, I was saying, I can't wait till next year when Patrick Surtain is eligible for the draft. All right, let's move on to that next guy. From Virginia Tech, Caleb Farley. Here's another long corner.
Yeah, I think this embodies, and it's very fitting that Dan Quinn is the Cowboys' new defensive coordinator. This guy embodies what people are looking in the new age from a cornerback. Caleb Farley, 6'2", almost 210 pounds. I mean, this guy is a hoss physically. Opted out this season, didn't play in 2020 because of COVID-19. So all you've got is his 2019 tape to go on. Very impressive, don't get me wrong. But that is an interesting dichotomy. Like I said, Patrick Surtain, 15 more games played last season than Caleb Farley. And it almost feels like people are more comfortable picking Farley, even though he hasn't played, just because he looked so good. And again, he's got this prototypical size. You just don't see very many 6'2", 207, 210-pound players who can move like that. And I think that's an interesting conversation of the very rare, very smooth-looking athlete who hasn't played in a year versus the guy who played 15 games, had his ups and downs, but is still a really solid player.
And you look at J.C. Horn, who's kind of that third cornerback prospect through the entire quarterback class, which is, by the way, very deep overall. It's a good draft for the Cowboys to have some picks. But where does he compare to those top 2 guys, and how close is he to closing the gap?
You want to talk about feeling old. J.C. Horn is the son of Joe Horn, who, me being from New Orleans, one of my favorite New Orleans Saints players, I don't understand how this is happening, how these guys are going into the NFL. But honestly, I think the gap's a lot closer than a lot of people think. People think of J.C. Horn as being a distant third. I'm not going to be surprised if he's picked in the same range. People criticize him for drawing a lot of flags. But man, I love his alpha mentality. He fights on every snap. He gets after it. He doesn't give receivers space. Honestly, even at number 10, I don't think he would be the pick. But if he was, I wouldn't be mad about it because, like I said, I don't think the gap is as big as some do.
The son of a 4-time Pro Bowler, and Patrick Surtain, the son of a 3-time Pro Bowler. Those are my 2 favorites from these that we looked at today. Dave Hellman, I appreciate it, and we will check you next time here on The Blitz. And when we come back, there are some very key dates to keep in mind as the NFL's new league year commences in just over a week.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz was brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. Tour AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Tours are available daily. For details, visit attstadium.com/tours.
Here they are, key offseason dates for your Dallas Cowboys. Starting on Tuesday, franchise tag deadline time, 3 o'clock on Tuesday for that Dak contract. Kyle Youmans, it really gets going next week. In fact, a week from tomorrow is when the negotiations with the free agents start.
Yeah, and we've already seen over the past week the free agents, the salary cuts that are already happening throughout the NFL. So free agency coming right on the back heel of that deadline is going to be huge.
All right, that does it for the Blitz. We will see you again next week on the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report.